Welcome to the program. I am your host, Andrew Wilkow. It's 8 p.m. here at Ground Zero. And today is the Democrats' favorite day of the year. Now, I'm not talking about the start of Trump's hush money trial. It's tax day. See, for conservatives, every day is July 4th. For the Democrats, every day is April 15th. This is their favorite day of the year, tax day. So they get to squeeze you and crunch you and take money from you. All right, so Israel is under attack. Over the weekend, 300 drones and missiles were launched by Iran, something they weren't able to do while Trump's sanctions were in place. You're not going to believe what I'm going to play you, but here we go. Here's Biden National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan just before the 10/7 attack on Israel.
And what we said is we want to depressurize, de-escalate, and ultimately integrate the Middle East region. The war in Yemen is in its 19th month of truce. For now, the Iranian attacks against U.S. forces have stopped. Our presence in Iraq is stable. I emphasize for now because all of that can change. And the Middle East region is quieter today than it has been in 2 decades.
That didn't age well. But what did they think was going to happen when they released billions and billions of dollars in Iranian assets, lifted Trump's sanctions, and said, if you guys want to work on a nuclear program, go right ahead? My first guest is a political analyst, editorial columnist, and author of Jake's Takes on Substack, Jake Novak. Are we living in a bizarro world here? In my monologue, I'm going to play the clip of Robert Gates saying that Joe Biden's been wrong on all major foreign policy issues for 4 decades. Did they think that giving Iran $10 billion was going to make them a nice neighbor?
No. They knew that this was going to happen. You know, during the first massive release of money to Iran under the Obama administration, which is the same administration as the Biden administration when it comes to foreign policy, it's the same players. They knew that a tremendous amount of that money would go to terrorism. Why did they know that? Because their own people told them that. And even more importantly, the Iranian people told them that. They said, don't do it. It's not going to be spent on anything to help us. Iran has only one GDP. They only do one thing, and that is wars, terrorism, more specifically foreign proxy wars, which of course they morphed into. They decided to expand their business into wars where they fire things from their own soil onto Israeli soil. That's why there was such a red line crossed on Saturday. But we knew that this was going to happen. If you give a chocolate factory billions of dollars, they're going to make more chocolate. And if you give a war machine, which is all Iran is, I should say the Iranian regime is, then all they're going to do is make more war. They knew this was going to happen. They did it anyway. They're trying to pretend that they, like that soundbite you just played from Jake Sullivan, that somehow they got some good results out of it for a while. It's not true. The amount of wars and death and terror in the Middle East ever since that 2015 policy went into place have gone up, except for the 4 years when Trump was president.
What do the Democrats have against Benjamin Netanyahu? They're seeking regime change there. What kind of Israeli government do they want? This is what I don't understand. Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas are not attacking Israel because Netanyahu is their prime minister. It's because they're Jews.
That's right. And Netanyahu is a straw man, Andrew. They want to bash Israel. They want to attack Israel. They know, listen, despite all the things that have happened, the polls still show tremendous support for the state of Israel from the American people. So they know they can't do that. So they try to find an individual person that they can beat up on in Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't think it's working, but they're trying to do that. The truth is, again, starting with that, it's really before 2015. Barack Obama, when he was inaugurated, even before he was inaugurated, was sending out these feelers, these overtures to Iran on the misbegotten notion that the U.S. had just been too pro-Israel and too pro-Saudi Arabia, and the way to get peace in the Middle East was to boost Iran. That would have been a good policy if Iran was doing something other than wars. That's all they do. So that was an insane policy from the beginning. So you're right. They don't really have any. Netanyahu is just a convenient guy to bash. They feel it's a little bit safer to attack him than the state of Israel because there are some pro-Israel Jewish groups that don't like Netanyahu as well. It's all a ruse, though, Andrew. It's a joke. They really are just trying to bash Israel. They think that weakening Israel will cause more peace in the Middle East. And that's just the opposite. I mean, you get peace through strength. Iran has only been emboldened by the bashing of Netanyahu by people like Chuck Schumer and other Democrats.
This is the one thing I don't understand. Why the love for Iran? We had protests right outside this building, across the street in Wall Street. I'd love to go up to anyone, any college kid who thinks they're joining some revolution to go, let me ask you something. Simple question. Which country would you rather live in?
Yeah, Andrew, it's not that hard to understand. It's about money and it's about hatred. First off, the hatred. Anti-Semitism. I'm sorry. I don't think that every criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism. I don't want to be accused of that. But this is that. I mean, when you fire 300 missiles and drones at civilian targets, every single one of those being a war crime, and you're not supporting Israel, then you're an anti-Semite. I'm sorry. But the second thing is, Andrew, since 2015, we have transferred hundreds of billions of dollars in cash, in sanctions relief, et cetera, to Iran. Do you think, Andrew, that the people who facilitated that transfer didn't get a cut of the deal? Come on, you don't. I'm sorry I don't have all the photographic evidence of it, but I'm also not an idiot, and neither are you. This is about money and hatred, and I think a lot of money has changed hands here.
We get the excuse that, well, this is a revenge for, knocking out a couple of high-ranking Iranian military officials who are in Syria. What are they doing? What are they doing in Syria? It's like when Qasem Soleimani went to Iraq, Trump's like, no dice, buddy. So you guys aren't in Syria because you're just stopping by for tea.
Yeah, and one of the generals was the one who planned, mapped out, and funded the October 7th massacres that killed more than 1,200 civilians. He wasn't just there. And thank you, by the way, for not repeating the regime media moronic comment that it was a consulate or an embassy. It wasn't. It was the IRGC headquarters building that happened to be next to an embassy. I'm a few miles away from an embassy. Can I get free parking? I mean, it's just ridiculous. And this is the kind of thing that we have to move on from. If you're going to have this is a terror army that uses the local populations. You mentioned he was in Syria. You think they really love the Syrians? No, they love the Syrians dying for them and acting as a buffer for them. Well, they didn't survive that buffer that time. That's a good thing.
All right, I got to leave it there. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
You want a crazy conspiracy theory? All right, I'll give you one. Jasmine Crockett thinks the entire Republican Party is now controlled by Russia.
As we know, the Republican Party is run by Russians at this point in time. So let's say some Russian decides to communicate with a member here in D.C. What FISA does is it's surveilling what the Russian is doing.
My argument's next.